Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. In our last class, I left you with this review writing, and we were talking about what reviews are and what are the the structure of review writing, and what different pieces of information we need to write our reviews. I'll start from of course the information actually which you need to collect before you go about writing. Of course, you need to know about that very work or that very book you want to write review about. You need to know the name of that book, the publisher's name, the place of publication, its edition number and all. Then of course you need to know the theme and the purpose and the development of that theme, which of course you can't do unless you read that, the style of that book. Then authors approach towards life, authors approach towards the philosophy of that discipline, and then the contribution. I mean, is it contributory or it's just the repetition of things? I mean, or you can say it's just the second versions of the philosophy or the research which has already taken place, and you are just rewording and re-expressing that, or in the real sense you are producing some genuine work and you are like of course taking that research ahead. And then of course you talk about the format. You need to collect information about the format, I mean the presentation of that work, the physical presentation of that work, the quality of printing, the quality of publishing, and the publishing house that is publishing, its popularity among or in that country or globally. And then of course the quality of the page also, and then the technical areas like appendices, which is very important actually, the range of appendices printed in the book. Then footnotes, another very important thing, bibliography especially, and then acknowledgements, and the content pages and abstract of that book. Is it written technically, and does it summarize the whole stuff? I mean, information about all these bits and pieces like you have gathered now. Let's now write a review. Of course, I have already told you that there are 4 paragraphs or 4 items you're going to write about. Let's begin with our first paragraph or the first item, which is introductory paragraph. What you're going to write in this paragraph. Now you have enough information which you have gathered about that very book, and you have enough bullets to fire. Now in this introductory paragraph, we call the first item of the introductory paragraph as naming. N-A-M-I-N-G, naming. Naming means name of the author, name of the book, that you of course talk about, because you are going to frustrate your readers towards the review if such a wonderful review you're writing, but the name of the author and the name of that work is like missing, right? So the very first thing in the introductory paragraph is naming. Who is the author? What's the work? Number 1. And in the same paragraph, then author's introduction you're going to give, like who this author is, and what's his professional strength, for example, and is he new or very experienced, popular, and all that stuff. See, next, third point of introductory paragraph, introduction to the book. Of course, title of the book, then the classification. When I say classification, you will write 1 or 2 lines on the genre of that book, that technically this book falls in which discipline or in which area of investigation, for example. Is it a fiction, non-fiction? If it's a fiction, then is it a play? Is it a a poetry, or it's a short story, or it's one-act play, blah blah blah, all that stuff. If it's a non-fiction, then what this all actually is about. Is it a biography or autobiography, or is it a travelogue, or all these bits and pieces, of course, you talk about. Then of course the purpose and the theme of the book. These 4 or 5 points will be discussed in paragraph number 1. Do not forget adding theme, and purpose of this book in paragraph 1. Okay, now you have prepared your introductory paragraph. Second paragraph is summary of the content. Like you have already discussed, purpose of the book, theme of the book. Now in this second paragraph, you will, summarize actually the whole work. Here you will write the précis of the whole book. Of course, you will give focus to the sportive details, the argumentation, the development of that theme, and you will of course talk about the style also, that how nicely, how smoothly, how like fluently, for example, author conveys his information to the readers. So that is going to be, the summary of all the work, which you are reviewing. Next point is the analysis and evaluation of the book. Now, this is the point which is going to be the major paragraph, actually. And I'm not saying that you are going to write your assessment and evaluation and analysis in only one paragraph. I mean, this point can be further divided into smaller paragraphs. And that is advisable also, point by point. Do not bury all your points, all your review points in one paragraph. Very difficult it will be, for the readers to understand. So you can, do what? If there are 6, 7, points of evaluation, so 6, 7, like, separate paragraphs, you can make. That's possible, actually. Smaller, point by point. Okay, so paragraphing is important. Number 1, order of analysis. Well, it depends. It can be chronological analysis, the way book goes, or you can choose yourself. From most important to the least important, that's possible, it's your choice actually, which order of importance you give. You can walk with the author, like if there are 7, 8 chapters, so exactly the same way, you can move, that's going to be chronological, or you can choose your own one, major to minor you can go. And then comes, comparative analysis. In the same paragraph, which is third, or in the same third item, comparative analysis is possible. For example, it's a book of, let's say, sociology. And you can see what other books are available in the market, or what other authors have also talked about on the same theme, and they are important. You can just 2, 3 sentences. Don't do much, don't do more. 2, 3 sentences. You can compare and contrast also. Compare and contrast what? This work with already available, work in the market. You can compare and contrast. Or this is another possibility. If this author has already written, let's say, some books or some research papers on the same subject, 1 or 2 sentences just to compare and contrast this book with, those research papers. So that's possible. But don't, stress more on this. Why? You're not writing a comparative, analysis of, books or work. You are actually writing review, which is, of course, analytical, commentary of the same piece of work, actually. So you can write a comparative, but 2, 3 sentences only. The last important thing for this very item is use direct quotes also. Especially for your major points, especially for your major analysis, it's always nice to punctuate your analysis, to support your analysis by directly quoting from the same book. Like on so-and-so page, first give your argument and then support that argument by saying, well, we can, see the same thing by the author written on so-and-so page, and then, you can, of course, write those 1 or 2 lines. So direct quoting is always nice, but please do not overquote. The reader shouldn't feel as if, like, this is not a review, but glimpses of the book. This is wrong. 4 or 5 direct quotes only for your major points. There is no need to, sport your minor points, actually, by directly quoting from that book. That's not required, actually. This is your third item. The first item was introduction, in which you gave the very mechanical information, the book name, author's introduction, his theme and purpose. Second paragraph was, the content, the summary of the whole work. Third paragraph, your assessment, your professional judgment of the work. You're calling it good or you're calling it bad, of course, on the basis of your analytical reading. On this third paragraph, which we say analysis and evaluation of the book, people say books are written twice. This is an important thing and interesting also. Books are written twice. One time by the author, second time by the critics. So, of course, the critics, they write, the very third item actually, in which they, of course, discuss analytically all these things, which I just talked about. Now, let's move towards the last paragraph, of your review. The last paragraph, of course, is the conclusion. Now, in conclusion, what you do actually, two things you talk about. First of all, you discuss the fate, the success and the failure of this work. You decide that this work will be avidly read and accepted and spotted by the readers and by the audience. I mean, is it going to be a popular work? It will be like, selling like hotcakes, or it will be a dead item in the market. So this they can predict. And review writers, frankly speaking, they are, of course, very clever. They are very wise also, and they are masters of this very craft. And their reviews, sometimes sell the books. Sometimes, my dear students, reviews sell the books. Not the the author. Sometimes, people don't know, like, who that author is. But when, the readers, they find the reviews, who's writing the review, and what words, like, that reviewer is actually, tagging up with that book, people, of course, go and buy that stuff like, hotcakes things. So, and the second important point in the conclusion will be, of course, nicely summarizing the whole analysis. This is all about conclusion. Of course, professional reviewers or professional review writers, of course, they are pretty experienced, pretty, like, very, very, I would say, particular about, the quality of their work. Of course, they write and they rewrite and they, like, revise and they proofread. You as a novice, or a student review writer, I would strongly advise you that when you finish writing your review, get the help of your friend also, and discuss all that stuff with him. Rewrite your review, and revise your review, proofread your review. Of course, check the content, check the grammar, check the mechanics and everything, and then, of course, you can send it to maybe your college magazine, or to your, like, to some publishing house, for the printing and all. And the last, the set which I, like, discussed in the last class, the press release and this review writing, and this now is the obituary. Actually, obituary is what this is, frankly speaking, death announcement. Someone has passed away, and that deceased relatives, for example, they want to announce, they want to inform all nears and dears, about the death of that person. So what they do is, they take the help of the media, actually, the newspapers, the radio, the television, of course, and also internet as well, and they write obituaries. Again, obituaries are, of course, written by, the non-reporters. They are also written by reporters, and they are also written by the newsmen. It's all possible. The way, like, press release is written by non-reporters, most of the time. Same way, obituaries are also written by non-reporters. Well, it depends, how like, it is done. Very, like, straightforwardly, frankly speaking, there are certain, points which are core points of the obituary writing. before I discuss with you systematically, just ask yourself what points are needed for this piece of writing. Of course, you need to know, you need to write, the name of the person who has, who has died, and of course his whereabouts, like where he used to live, and if that guy is important, then why he was important, what he has done in his life, his contribution towards life, for example. Then of course his relatives, especially his spouse and his siblings and his children, for example, his relatives also. If any other person is famous in that family, for example, so his name you can also mention. And then the funeral details and all. So this is all about the obituary thing. Let me now discuss with you one by one these points which are must for the obituary. Of course, it's every day you find in newspapers the obituary, and of course very small space newspapers give to this piece, and but now the times are changing. See, I mean, people are paying now for the obituaries, and they are getting larger spaces in the newspapers, and this is how things are being written. And the style of writing obituary is also changing now with time. The actual the style of this writing is very technical, very mechanical, very much to the point, very much brief. But now the artistry is now also creeping into, and obituaries are written as, I would say, literary pieces actually. Well, we'll discuss not those literary pieces, we'll discuss the very technical style of writing obituary. Well, there are certain points which are important. Let me discuss with you. Number one, name of deceased person. Full name you're going to give. And second one, date of death, the date he died. Third one, cause of death, why he died, how he died actually. He died in hospital, he died at home, he died of what? He died of cancer, he died of what disease? Okay, what was the cause of his death? You are going to write about. And then comes, his date of birth. Of course, then you go back, and talk about, when he was born. So, these many years, of course, he lived. And then who the survivors are. You can talk about the spouse, husband and wife thing. And you can talk about, the sons and daughters. You can talk about brothers and sisters, if possible. Even sometimes, you write about the grandchildren, also, that so many, grandchildren, he left. Next point is anything notable done by the deceased. As I told you before, if, his contribution actually towards life, whatever that was, a few lines on, and then, of course, funeral information. Now, the same pieces of, I'll not spend much time on it. I'll show you one example, example of this obituary, and try to see, whether all these points are very much present in that obituary. Let's take a look of now an example of the obituary, and while you go through it, please keep in mind all those points which I discussed with you, the points of obituary, match where they are present in which paragraph, and do give attention to the organization of this obituary also. Okay, on your screen you can find 4 paragraphs, and I read it for you. Joe Blow, a 26-year resident of Podunk, Nevada, died 2007 of cancer. This is paragraph 1, and the reason of death is also given in it. Second paragraph, born on Feb 28, 1930. Now this is his date of birth. He married Sue Monish on Feb 14, 1952. This is the name of the wife and his marriage date. She preceded him in death. He was a veteran of the Second World War and had received the Navy Cross and the Purple Heart for bravery. Now, dear students, this is what actually we say, his contribution towards life. If he is a known person, eminent person, then the reason of that, his fame should also be given. Third paragraph, survivors are son Bill Podunk. Podunk means, he lives actually in this area. Daughter Jill Johnson, Las Vegas. 6 grandchildren. Now, information about daughter, information about son, information about the grandchildren also. Now the last paragraph. Funeral services Saturday 2 p.m. Podunk Chapel, now the place like where the services will be. Visitation 1 hour before the service. Burial at Podunk Cemetery with full military honors. Now this is what actually obituary is, and this is how it is written. Once again, I would like to highlight from the same example what you call the organization of it. In the first paragraph, again, did you see the death announcement is there? The cause of death is also there. In the second paragraph, we found out information about his spouse and his fame, his contribution. In the third paragraph, you can find information about his family, I mean his daughters, his sons, and his grandchildren. In the last paragraph, then, you give information about funeral stuff and all, and how you can come and you can see. Well, that's all about it. Now let's move towards our last topic of this journalistic writing. That is the art of interviews. I believe there is no need to tell you what interviews are. There's no denying the fact actually that interviews have become very much part and parcel, heart and soul of the world of journalism. Interviews you find in newspapers, you find interviews on radio, on television, you find on internet also. They are now very much, even these days, on your mobiles, you can listen to the comments, like during matches, for example, you can listen to the comments. They are also sort of invited a person, that person recorded his comments and given, of course, on to you. So you find everywhere these interviews. Of course, interviews bring color to the report. Otherwise, of course, the dead details of the report, if you go through, you become bored, and then these newspaper and the media people actually they conduct interviews, and they punctuate the report details with the direct quotes or the views of of course different parties involved in. Let's straight away talk about how many are different types of interviews. Well, there's a long list of different types of interviews, but I'll discuss with you only 7 types. The first interview type, we call it the quickie. The quickie means the briefest interview, actually very short interview. Let's say you are somewhere in assembly, you are somewhere in Senate, for example. You have the member assembly, the member Senate, for example, Parliament. See, ministers are there, Prime Minister is there. See, you can meet them there. Of course, they are busy guys actually. You hardly can find a minute perhaps from them. In that very minute, you can ask the very big question. When we say big question is the actual. Of course, you can have a list of questions. Some questions are warming up questions. Some questions are rounding off questions. Big questions are always inside, sandwiched. So in quickie interviews, straight away, you throw your big questions and you receive your answers. Of course, quickie interviews, when you are in assemblies or you are somewhere around Senate thing, of course, you do not find, you cannot take your tape recorder, for example, in, so you have to rely only on your note-taking thing. So this is, quickie interview. Well, quickie interview can be conducted at any place, but if it's 1 minute, 2 minute long, that will be, of course, called a quickie interview. And quickie interview only focuses on the big questions, or you can say the hard questions, or you can say the actual question for which you have, left your office to collect information, for. Second type is vox pop. Now, this vox pop does not mean that, that you go and you interview Madonna or Jackson. Vox pop means that, your cameraman, your photographer, for example, you are walking on the street and on the roads, and different, people who have come out the homes for shopping, for example, and you take their views, from one person to another person, from one to another person, move. You have a question in your mind, you have a question in your hand, and let's say you are out, in the towards the shopping areas, and it's, let's say, Chand Raat, for example, and you are taking the views of why, like, you people are specially out from your homes for shopping this very night. Is it, like, the right way or the wrong way? What is the importance of this night? Blah, blah, blah. You have some question in your mind, and you take the views of, different people, ordinary people. See, this is, we call, vox pop. Very important. Of course, such interviews are for entertainment purpose also, and you can even discuss some serious issues also. For example, the price hike, let's say, the petrol prices, like, every day going up. The, you find, like, the price, like, skyrocketing, of each and everything. See, so you can go to the market, see, and you can take the views of the people about, like, how they feel about, this all price hike thing. When the things of daily use are, getting so expensive, I mean, see, then how people are budgeting themselves, blah, blah, blah. So this pieces of information, you can, of course, take from, and you can, like, directly quote, in your report thing, and make it rather more factual and more lifelike. So vox pop, they are very important. Number 3, we have ambush interview. Now, ambush interview means, hide and seek interview. Hide and seek, not the one, like, we used to play a game in our childhood. No, hide and seek means, you hide and you seek the celebrity. Of course, these politicians, for example, these celebrities, in other words, the elites, for example, they like, probably, they pretend actually to be shy, facing cameras. Actually they're not, but they pretend, like, just to seek the attention actually of the media, frankly speaking, and they don't usually happen to give time to the media, and all, blah, blah, blah. When it's not possible for the media men to, seek the celebrities, to ask some questions, to take the views, for example, then they, like, adopt this interview style. What they do is actually, very frankly speaking, they hide and seek. I mean, if they, they can, like, wait outside the living place of those celebrities, for example, and when, for, that, 10 o'clock, so-and-so person, moves towards his office, so quarter to 10, for example, like, they can go at their place, and they can surprise catch them. I mean, when they come out for their offices, for example, they come out for their shootings, for example, so you can surprise catch them, and you can, of course, ask questions, blah, blah, blah. So this is how ambush interview is there. Ambush interview is the last resort, actually. This is not, I'm not saying that, this is a nice way of conducting interview, but when, it's simply not possible, to approach a person who is the central figure of your report, for example, then ambush interview, is the best choice. You may have to face bad times also in ambush interview. The next one is phony interviews. Phony interviews are very common these days. I mean, you can dial up so-and-so person's number, and you can, ask question, and you can have a question and answer session, before, like, in doing it, of course, you prepare a list of your questions, you phone. Of course, you ask if they are free, you could ask them questions. If you get a response from your, interviewee that, yes, I'm free, then one by one, of course, you can, ask questions. But the drawback of this interview is that you cannot see the spontaneity. I mean, of course, this is spontaneous interview, but you cannot see, the facial expressions, the body language, actually. At times, what happens, body language speaks louder than your words. So you get a lot from, the facial expressions, the physical gestures, actually, from your interviewee. Plus, there is another drawback, you cannot have fresh photo or the video clip of your interviewee. You will simply have to depend upon the file photos. So this is one drawback, but this is very common these days, phony interviews. Next comes, performa type. Now, what is performa type? Depends, like, on need basis, this interview we also conduct. What is this actually? This means, let's say you have 10 questions to ask. What you do is either you email these 10 questions to your, interviewee, or you can courier them by post. You can send them. Now, the interviewee actually, or your subject or your source, he has got ample time. He has, like, let's say one day you give him that these are the questions, please write their answers, and then again email us or post us back. This is one possibility. Again, it has benefits also. It has its own drawbacks as well. Drawback is that the spontaneity, the element of spontaneity, the element of abruptness is missing. Answers will be more, you can say, crafted, less, you can say, factual. I mean, you are giving enough time, enough thinking time actually to your subject, and he can, of course, craft answers. And when answers are created and they're crafted, it means, facts are compromised. It means fiction will be multiplied by the faction. Facts and the fiction mixed will be there. Well, if you don't have any other way out, then of course this performer type interviews you can also conduct. Elites, celebrities interviews for entertainment purpose especially are usually conducted the same way. You prepare your questions, you simply send them, they send you back answers. So and these interviews are they make their appearance, of course, in magazines, especially. Then comes next is phone tip-offs. This is another interview, but I cannot say that it's not very common. Well, it depends. By the way, what actually these tip-offs are? Tip-offs means when your subject, when your source himself or herself gives you a call and requests an interview. For example, any politician, he wants to disclose something, he can give a call to some journalist, some reporter of so-and-so newspaper or so-and-so TV news channel, and can request that, I have something to tell, so send your team. Of course, in split, seconds, what happens, like, your photographer, your cameraman, they of course reach his place, whatever, like, place you set. That could be hotel, that could be restaurant, that could be his own place, and or he can, like, come to your place, and this is how, like, this interview is conducted. Well, by the way, these days, the tip-offs are also very common. But generally speaking, I mean, they didn't used to be very common, but I guess, like, these days they are, like, getting currency. The last one, and the most important one, the most reliable one, in-depth interviews. Now, in-depth interviews are, in magazines, especially in supplements also, especially like, Sunday Sunday supplements, in-depth interviews are printed. And also TV interviews, in-depth interviews are very, very common on, on television. Let's now talk about how to prepare, for our interviews. Well, there are certain points which I would like to, discuss with you. First of all, approaching. You have to approach your target. When I say target means, the person you want to conduct interview of. So, of course, first of all, you have to approach him. You can approach him, of course, by making a call. You can approach him through a reference also. You can make a visit as well. You can you can visit, like, his office or his home, and, like, you can get an appointment. This is one possibility. Second point is the purpose. This is very important at your end, that you set yourself by like, discussing with your editor, for example, by discussing it, with your newspaper or, that news channel, for example, that what is going to be the purpose of this interview. Okay, let's move towards our next point. After purpose, after discussing the purpose with your, editor, and of course with yourself also, do explain that purpose to your subject, to your source, so that, he could prepare interview accordingly. The next point will be, of course, fixing time and place. Of course, time, place can be your territory. I mean, they can come to your, channel or newspaper place, or you can go to your subject's territory, or you can decide a neutral territory, for example, hotel, restaurant, any park, well, it depends. Well, this is like, you fix time and you fix place. Next is, researching. Now, this is an important thing. What researching? Of course, your interviewee will also be researching, in facing you. This is something very, very important. I remember, I believe, there are, of course, many interviewers, like, in the world. You can name, like, of course, some of them you, of course, know. But I would like to name one wonderful interviewer, Oriana Flashy. She wrote a book, Interviews with History. Probably 12, 13 interviews, he printed in her book, conducted. And when she, what I actually want to tell you is, when she talked to Richard Nixon, US President, that I want to conduct your interview, what Richard Nixon's response was towards Oriana Flashy? He said, I want a preparation of 1 year to face your questions. So just imagine, see how much preparation is needed. Of course, on the parts of both the parties. The interviewer also, he has to research, he has to study, like, who he is going to conduct interview of. What actually he is, what are, like, his good aspects, his bad aspects, what are his strengths, his weaknesses, what's his field, and all that, tiddly-bitly thing he wants to. Same way, like, interview also prepares for the interview. So researching is very, very important. Next one, of course, list of questions. You are going to prepare a tentative list of questions, which you may ask. But keep in mind, good interviewer does not prepare an absolute list of questions. What is an absolute list of questions? Means, you sit down and you prepare, let's say, 20 questions, and they are not flexible questions. I mean, you very strictly try to ask these questions one after the other, and you do not let your, let yourself actually, seek questions out of the talk of the interviewer. So there is no absolute question list, actually. You find questions as you move along with the interviewee, So lots of questions come into your mind. Those questions you can ask, and you can, of course, get, I would say, novel information, about certain, subject or certain purpose on which, you're conducting that interview. Well, you have to prepare, of course, a list of questions, which serves, the purpose of your interview. Next one, dress sense. This is important. If you are going to interview a cricket player or a hockey player, you're going to dress differently the way you're going to conduct an interview of, let's say, the Prime Minister or the President of so-and-so country. Of course, dress sense, the dress appropriacy is different, as is your target, different. So this, you have to keep in mind. The last point is preliminary courtesies. Ask yourself that how you are going to portray yourself when you are going to make your first appearance before your target. And of course, write some nice sentences when you are going to face him, what nice ways of greetings, you're going to exchange, and, and how the strategy also, especially choose the strategy, how you're going to start. Are you going to attack your target, which of course I don't, recommend that, we should attack. Well, by the way, here I should take the opportunity to tell you this point, that these days, I don't know why, I don't know from where, this style of, conducting interview has creeped into that, you start threatening your target, your source. You start simply just an inch away you are left in hanging that person. Don't do that. You are there. He is a source of information, and your job is prepare some clever questions which could, entice that information from him. You are nobody, to attack anybody, see. You are nobody to threaten anybody, see. That person, the one who you are conducting interview of, he's equally serving you. The way you are projecting him, he's also projecting you. He's giving you valuable information. Don't do that. There are, I know there are some on news channels, there are some, news stuff. This is at times, this is a strategy actually. At times you can choose it, but don't stick to it. Good interview is the one which I believe is polite, in an atmosphere, in an environment, which is full of serenity, full of, calm, and there you conduct interview. When you threat other person, actually you let him get ready to give you a counter attack. But when you are calm, cool, and you are calm, cool in your persona, but you are razor sharp, in your questions. That is the quality. Your questions should be razor sharp. Your, body language should not be razor sharp. There should not be any frowning on your forehead, Keep your body language very positive, very positive. He's your guest, actually, okay? Keep your body language positive, but make your questions sharp. So this is how, you can adopt this strategy. Now, let's move towards the D-Day, the actual day of, conducting that interview, and what to do, when you, reach your target, you sit together, and, then what happens? Of course, starting off will be very important when you are now sitting with your target and your source starting off. Please keep in your mind that interview should not be flat. It will be monotonous for your target, difficult for you, and also boring for your readers. Because, the same pace for some specific, point of time, of course, makes things boring, lifeless. So make, introduce some variation, in the format of your interview. Start from, let's say, some warming up questions. That's very important. Look, facing camera, facing photographer, facing questions, is honestly speaking difficult. It's not easy because it does not happen every day, Therefore, you have to mentally prepare that person that you are going to be now asked questions. You will be asked for some, some snapshots. You will be camcordered. Therefore, you need to prepare that person mentally. So warming up is very important. Therefore, don't start away, don't start asking questions, right away. Rather, sit together, greet each other, say hello and hi. And, you may pass some comments on his dressing, for example. You may pass comment on the four walls, you have on his aesthetics, for example. Okay, you crack some joke or some anecdote, you can crack so that, things could be settled down. He could be relaxed, he could get his breath back. And now, you have actually brought that person in one, box in which, you can ask questions. So starting off is very important. It should be warming up starting off. Next is, asking questions. Look, there are two types of questions. One we call closed questions. What are closed questions? Closed questions means which always answer yes, no. All helping verb questions, for example, questions like do, does, did, has, have, is, am, are, was, and were. Now, all these questions, if you frame your questions with these, helping verbs, its answer is always yes and no. So don't ask closed question, ask open questions. What are open questions? Well, there are 6 again. 6 questions, WH questions, who, what, when, why, where, and how. Now, these questions cannot be answered yes and no. When you ask an open question, you get an open answer, frankly speaking. This is important thing, which question, to ask. Number 3, note-taking or recording. Well, it's your choice. Note-taking, of course, is in a way difficult that, you have to keep up with the speed of that person's, conversation, which of course is difficult. You can make use of shorthand thing also, or very simply you can record the interview. But recording is intimidating, when you put a tape recorder in front of the interviewee, and that intimidates him because nobody wants actually to be recorded, Therefore, that, probably makes them, little unsettled. Therefore, note-taking. Well, I'm not saying which one is. I think both should go together. And the best thing is before starting your interview, you can brief him that we'll be recording interview. There are some drawbacks. I mean, that the malfunctioning of the tape recorder. Sometimes, you just are sitting in this impression that the whole proceeding is being recorded, but when you at the end of the interview, when you play, nothing is there. So therefore, I would say the backup should also be there. Recording plus the note taking, both should go side by side. The next point, which is important, pacing the interview. Of course, the pace, I mean, there will be some threatening questions and some non-threatening questions. Okay, so there should be a mix of all these. As I told you, interview is going to be in ascending order from warming up questions. Slowly, you will go and reach towards the climax. There you can, of course, ask threatening questions, and then you start descending, going down to, of course, saying bye-bye. So have a mix of threatening and non-threatening. Okay. Next one is active listening. During interview, your job is to listen actively. Your job should not be this, that when he will finish this answer and which question I will ask next. This is a psychological game. He is telling you information. There are, in each answer, you can have 100 questions more. But if you are very absolutely, confining yourself onto the list of questions which you have prepared, it means you are only waiting for your turn when you will be asking questions. Don't do that. Listen to him compassionately so that you could have a very lively conversation with him. Next one is, of course, clarify. If anything is confusing, you can ask him again, excuse me, could you repeat that, could you say it again? And if your source or your subject does not understand the question, then you can rephrase the question. That's also possible. Then be patient, okay? Don't jump in the middle way. That's bad, actually. Give enough time to your readers, because there are people who are quick thinkers and they are who are slow thinkers. So people need time differently. You got to be patient. Don't jump in the middle way. This way, you can, of course, break the train of their thoughts, and they could have, given you information what, because of your jumping in, is no more. And another thing is, power games. Weak interviewers, if you are not an experienced interviewer or you do not have done any preparation, for example, then you will be playing in the hands of your interviewee. So the power will be shifted onto the interviewee. Look, the one who is there to ask question, he should enjoy the power. He should decide when to ask what, when interview should speak, when he should not speak. But when your preparation is missing, when you are not experienced or you haven't done homework, you will be playing in the hands of your interviewee, okay? So he will take the control of the whole session and your purpose will be lost, not served, okay? And of course, keep a very tight eye on the body language of your interview. That's also very important. And before leaving your interviewee, do wind up your interview. Wind up means here you can have some absolute questions, rounding off questions. Say a few words for his valuable time. Say a few words for his valuable information. You can say some aesthetic points also. You can talk about his family. Very light questions you can ask to wind up all that stuff. Very quick, I would like to just say a few words on sometimes your target is difficult one. I mean, what type of difficult targets you can face? For example, overhaste interviewee. Who is an overhaste interviewee? The one who has no time. If you ask him that I want to conduct your interview, he would say, excuse me, okay, fine, conduct my interview, but I have only 5 minutes. So if that is the case, then do not, follow this strategy, the one which is warming up and rounding off. Rather, start from your big questions. Number 2, silent interviewee. I mean, there are some targets who do not speak. Okay, over there, it's a question of your patience, actually. So you got to be very, very patient. Give him ample time. Then, of course, words will come out. Number 1, no comment. Some interviewees, they are no comment, actually. Especially people of the judiciary, sometimes they actually, because they cannot, talk each and everything with you, So no comment stuff. So you have to deal with such worthy people intelligently. Next comes, the dodger. Dodger is the one who misquotes, who, gives you wrong facts and figures and all. And the dodger is also the one who knows that the interviewer is not competent, or he's not prepared, or hasn't done homework, and he becomes the dodger. The last one is the waffler. Wafflers, who are wafflers? Wafflers are people who are raconteers actually. They enjoy talking, they enjoy conversing, they enjoy storytelling actually. So you got to again and again bring them back to the main point. They digress a lot. They discuss everything but your question. So you got to bring them back to the point so that the time which you are spending, that could be fruitful in the real sense. Now I'm cutting it short. Final points. There are some very nice important points I would read out for you, so that you could really understand in the real sense what actually interviews now are. The first one, preparation allows you to ask good questions. Preparation allows you to deal with the difficult interviewees, decide how you will dress. Think of your meeting with the subject as a structured but friendly conversation. Try to establish a rapport with the person early on. Look the subject in the eye and listen carefully to his or her answers. When the source is speaking, nod or make some verbal remark to show you are listening and understanding. Focus on what the source is saying, not on what you will ask next. Do not interrupt. Do not ask long questions. Do not talk too much. Control your physical actions and mental attitude. And the next is, begin with easy questions. Next, tell the subject you will be calling back later to check facts. Next, tape record the conversation if time permits and the story demands. Next one, direct quotes from your subject are essential for your story. Make sure the quote is revealing of your subject. And the last point, which is very important point, remember, journalism is what somebody does not want you to print. Everything else is publicity. Dear students, with this, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. This is all about the interview. In our next and the last lecture, we will talk about, the review of the whole course. Till then, bye-bye.